Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, April 4th, 2025. Forgive me in advance for how this recap will go because of connection issues. So I'm going to try to recap as much as I can remember. Some scene pictures are missing, but please bear with me. I'll try to recap as much as I can remember. So let's get into the first part where JJ is doing his investigation and, he is this time they do not know who the murder could be because they just escaped out the entryway in the living area, right? So Kristen rushes down in her room and she's saying, like, I just heard about what happened to my brother, like, what's going on here? So he said he doesn't really have much information. Chad was the one who took him to the ambulance. So she said, I need to go down there to the hospital. I need to be there for him. So JJ said, not so fast before you and I have a talk. So she's like, what do we have to talk about? My brother's in the hospital. So he's saying, like, I need to ask you some questions, like, where were you on today? Like, where were you when this happened? She said that she was with Brady, which was true. She was with Brady talking to him about his father's disappearance, and she was there for a while. She doesn't remember the time. And then he said, what you did when you after you talked to him? So she said she went home. She went to check on Rachel. So he said, did you talk to EJ at all? So she said briefly, but he didn't want to be bothered. So I left and go check on my daughter. And he's like, after that, what did you do? So she said she showered, washed her hair. So he's like, really? Showered? Why you showered? So I'm like, JJ, really? Like, why would you ask her why she showered? So she's like, excuse me? So he's like, to get off the blood or the gun residue. So she said, no, I really was just, minding my own business. And, I didn't even hear what happened downstairs because I had the water on and all that. So is a policeman came up to tell me about what happened. And that's why I came down here. So I would never shoot my brother. Like, him and I have had bad history, but it doesn't mean that I would kill him, right? So it's like, it's not like you haven't done so before to my ex-girlfriend and, you attempted to murder Victor Kiriakis. So she said, come on, Haley was an accident. Didn't mean for that to happen. You know that, right? So and I always say she is remorseful for that because I believe she was just under duress, postpartum, and all that. It was unintentional, but JJ shouldn't have been so personal about that, right? But anyways, he said to her not to go interfere with the investigation. And she did say to him that he has a long list of enemies, right? So that made JJ think about Gabby and when Gabby tried to attempt to off EJ at some point. So he thought about that as well. So he told her not to interfere in the investigation and not to leave town, right? So she said, why would she leave town? Because I mean, that's my brother. Like, I want to see whoever did it pay, right? So at some point, she texted Chad to see what was going on. And because of everything, Chad was just waiting to, for his condition to improve, to update it, right? So back to the hospital, Kayla said that, the surgery went well. And, even though he had a punctured lung, she was able to repair the scar tissue. It's just that, he has a long recovery ahead of him. So Chad saying that if he could see him, and she said yes for a little while. So her and Kat got to talking a little bit, and she said that, she can leave, she doesn't have to be here. So she said, no, I'd rather be here because he has nobody to really be there for him. He's going through a lot. And Kayla understands because Kayla said, it's not the first time he, went through all this. And he said, oh, like when he lost Abigail. So she said, no, I wasn't really thinking about that. I was thinking about EJ got shot, the last time. And Clyde was the one who did it. So Kat is saying, that man has ruined so much lives. Like, how many lives has he have to ruin? So she said that they didn't know that EJ was going to make it. And, they thought he passed off. So, Chad is definitely going through it a lot. Leah ran into Gabby, who is definitely shaken up, and he's like, what's going on with you? So she said, I just startled. I don't like when, you know, I just don't like when people barge into me or something like that. I can't recall what exactly she said, but she was definitely on edge. So, anyways, he was telling her about how we got to be careful since we have a killer on the loose. So she said, "What are you talking about?" So it's like There was a big shooting. EJ got shot. He's in the hospital, and we don't really know if he's gonna make it or not. Right? The police haven't given me much information. I was over there at the crime scene, doing my investigative journalism and all that, and I didn't get much information on that. So we don't know who did it. Right? So at this point, Gabby's rejoicing because Gabby's saying like, whoever did it is a hero in my book. Like he deserved it, and she's like, I didn't know. He's like, I know you hate EJ, but that bad. So she said, yeah, like he is responsible for a lot of things, sending me to jail for a crime that I didn't commit, yada yada yada, and destroying my marriage with Stefan, and also replacing my brother with that imposter. And I'm saying, Gabby, you don't have no accountability in this. Like, you also caused that demise of your marriage by sleeping with your brother, your husband's brother, right? Like, you need to take some accountability, and also the fact that you're not innocent either. But anyways, she was saying some words to him about him, his BS deserves to go to jail. Well, deserves to go to, have a one ticket plane to hell. So Leah said, can I quote you that? So she said, no, like, I do not want the police to think that I did it or anything like that. So she said, consider the fact that I was welcoming for you to stay with Javi at the house, so just don't use that in your journalism piece, right? So he said, okay, cool, you offered her, right? She said no, she had an errand to do, right? So anyways, she run into JJ at some point, and JJ said, did you heard about what happened? So she said, Leo told her. So she's asking him if he knows anything about EJ, if he's surviving or what. So he said he cannot really speak on that. It's an investigation. So of course JJ is kind of having his eye on Gabby, because again, Gabby is definitely a suspect for this too, right? So Rafe is back at home. Remember on yesterday's episode, none of the Hernandez were there at home, and JJ was looking, calling, and nobody was there. It seems as if Rafe went to the bar to get a pack of beer, because of what's going on with him and Jada. And he comes back in. Javi's there by himself, enjoying his little solitude, or he's just bored or whatever. Comes over and he sees that Rafe is down, and he's like, what's going on? You can tell me. So he said that Jada cheated on him with Sean, and he's like, Sean, really? So, I mean, he like Gabby understands why it happened, because Jada has been through a lot, and she thought that she was marrying Rafe, and she's been through a lot. She was hurt, and he can understand that she turned for comfort to another man. And Rafe is just saying, and he's saying, he's defending his point about how she doesn't know the difference between him and the imposter. Like, why would she think that he would go so low, right? So she said, like, he said, like, a lot of people never knew. I mean, yes, she could have, dig a little deeper, but at the end of the day, she didn't know. And you have to give her a grace on that, right? So he said he don't know if he can really forgive her. And I'm saying, Rafe, like, you're angry right now. And I get that Jada should have been honest with you from the beginning, but I think you should cut her some slack, because, again, like, she did not know, and it was an honest mistake. Like, she thought it was over. I mean, she's impulsive, yes, but don't beat her for that. And the fact is, like, Rafe, you're not innocent either. Like, you've hurt women in your past. Like, you've hurt Ava when you were messing around with Nicole. Like, come on, give her some slack. So, anyways, Leo comes in, and Leo tells them what happened with EJ. And Rafe is like, is he gonna make it? So they don't really know at this point. So Rafe remembers that he planted the bug at the Manchester, so he has somewhere to go. So Harvey is just suspicious because Rafe is acting strange. He's wondering if Rafe had anything to do with EJ's demise, or Leo's also suspecting Gabby because of how she was acting when he encountered her earlier. So now the list is just getting extensive and more extensive, right? And they even forgot to add in Roman, because remember in yesterday's episode, Roman also was putting back the gun. So maybe he and Johnny teamed up. I do not know, but it's getting more and more interesting. So Jada is there again, making a complete mess of herself at the bar, drinking a lot. And she know that's what happened the last time, and her and Sean. So anyway, she's there, and just backing all these drinks. And Sean comes in because at this point they're trying to reach Jada for this high profile shooting and they can't reach her. Sean tracks her down and Sean is like, she's like, come on, have a drink with me, And he said, no, no thanks. And she's like, I forgot you don't drink club soda. And she said, thank you, but no. Actually, tracked you down for this high profile shooting. So she said, what happened? So he's like, EJ has been shot. So she's like, why nobody called me? And he said, we were trying to call you, but you haven't been answering your phone. So she said her phone was off. She just wanted to disconnect. And he understands that. So anyways, before we get into that part further, she was also telling them about what happened with her and Rafe and how Rafe kicked her out because of finding out what happened between them. And he's sorry to hear that. He thought that Rafe would be more understanding. He'd be angry, but more understanding, right? And he's telling her she don't deserve all that, and she really didn't know that Rafe was really Rafe. None of them really knew. It was just trying to give her a grace, right? And she appreciates it, but she just felt like as a detective and as his fiance, she should have done it better. But anyways, she wanted to help with the whole investigation. So he said, no, like just stay home, right? Go sleep it off. So she said, I have no place to go. Rafe kicked me out, remember? So he said, okay, come over to my place. So she's like, Rafe would be thrilled about that. So he said, you know I mean, Rafe definitely can't have a say in this right now because he's the one that kicked you out. Just stay over my place, right? So she agreed. Let's see how this unfolds, right? So moving on to Chad and EJ, right? So Chad is in the room with his brother and he's talking to him and he said he knows that he's mad at him for his him approving this whole article on him, right? So he said, I know you can't be mad at me, but I have to be here. You're my brother. I love you. I talked to your mom. I sent her a voice note. She didn't answer, but I sent her a voice note to also try to call Sydney and Johnny. And I know Johnny's going to be here. And I was laughing at that because, Chad, you don't know the situation between him and his dad right now. Johnny's not coming nowhere. Probably Johnny is the one that even did it to him, too. So at this point, he's talking to him, saying that he loves him and all that. And he just starts convulsing. He's shaking up and down. And he calls Kayla. Kayla says, I have to take care of the situation. So she tells Chad to come out. Moments later, she comes to Chad and Kat, and she tells Chad that EJ is now in a medically induced coma, as we suspected that to happen, right? So now his child is wondering if he's gonna make it or he's gonna die. So Kat is just there supporting him, comforting him, and hugging him, right? So at this point, we now have a long list of enemies and possibilities and a lot of hunches. So I am excited to see what happened in next week. Who shot EJ, really? A lot of theories, right? But let me know in the comments what you think about today's episode. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. I will see you guys tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow, next Monday. See you guys next Monday. Have an enjoyable weekend.